the agent of the company, but what exactly you are the chief administrative officer. For the balance sheet or the profit and loss account, the company secretary's signature is mandatory. Who is actually liable? That is, the company secretary is liable, and he will be questioned in the ED as well as in the police station. Memorandum is very much needed to whenever a public company is formed, the MOA. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I'm Abhilash Chandra from the Department of Commerce and Management in Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. Welcome to all the students here. Now, in the previous session, we understand about the duties and the roles of the company secretary. Now here we will understand the legal positions of the company secretary. Now, what exactly the legal position of the company secretary is all about? The first one here, you need to understand that legal positions are, the first one is, he is the servant of the company. What is it? He is the servant of the company. The secretary of the company is a servant of the company whose duty is to act in accordance within the instructions given to him by directors. So the first point is what? He should be a servant of the company. Now, when I say servant of the company, don't feel bad that I'll tell you what exactly it is. Though you are called as a servant of a company, but still you are the person who is a kingmaker as well as a decision maker. Next is agent of the company. That means the secretary of the company being chief administrative officer, being a chief administrative officer of the company by virtue he will be called as CAO, Chief Administrative Officer of the company. By virtue of his office, he is also an agent of the company in the restricted sense. Now, please understand, the servant of the company, the agent of the company, but what exactly you are the chief administrative officer. He also established the authority to entry into contracts on behalf of the company as regards matter connected with office administration. That means he is the real decision maker. When we go with decision maker, understand, though he works under the board of directors, but sometimes, as I told you in session 2, that he can actually be more powerful than the board of directors because it is his signature which is very, very compulsory, as well as it is mandatory that he need to sign, or else those documents will not be done finalized. So these are the things which you are supposed to know. Though we know that he is a servant of the company, he is the agent of the company, but you should never forget that he becomes the chief administrative officer. Next, the third one is officer of the company. Now he became the servant from that agent. Now he is what? The officer of the company. Now, as an officer of the company, the secretary may incur personal liability to statutory penalties by reason of non-compliance with the requirement of Companies Act 2013. Besides, he is a chief officer under whose supervision all ministerial and administrative work at registered office of the company is carried on. That means without him, it is impossible, it's very difficult to go with any of the administrative or with any of the ministerial work at the registered office, of the company is carried on. Now the ROC, now you already know what exactly ROC is, Registered of Companies. Now Registered Office of Company. Without company secretary, they will not go with any proceedings. Now in the ROC, what will happen is any kind of proceedings, if they go with it, without a company secretary, they cannot do anything. So a company secretary is very, very important person. He is a what? Very important person. Very important. This is how you are supposed to know. Next, liabilities of company secretary. Now I told you about this liability, right? What exactly it is? The company secretary is deemed to be liable for various acts of omission and commission. Now here you need to understand what does omission and commission caused due to his negligence. His liability may be discussed under two categories. The first one is statutory liability and next one is contractual liability. Now he is liable. He is liable. Now on what basis is he liable? Now we have two types, that is statutory and contractual. I'll just tell you in nutshell what exactly the liable is. Now in the absence of company's common seal, the company secretary will go for a signature. If something happens, who will be actually asked the questions? That is a company secretary. So he is liable for that. Now one more thing, any of the balance sheet or profit and loss account, there is a problem. Now you need to understand, for the balance sheet or the profit and loss account, the company secretary's signature is mandatory. Now if something like his negligence and he did not see the real amount and it did not tally in, but still he has signed, now who is liable? That is, he is the person who is liable. Let's check the statutory one. The first one is statutory liability are those which are imposed under the Indian Companies Act or under any other act of the land. That is the statutory complaints. Now they are both civil and criminal in nature. Please understand this. They are both civil and criminal in nature. Failure to perform any of the statutory duties results in liability of the secretary. So he should be very careful because they can be booked on the civil case or it can be a criminal case. Next, for instance, like failure of file written. Now if they will not go with a file written, who is to be blamed? That is, the company secretary should be blamed. Making false statements. When we go with this, making false statements, say example, the balance sheet is something but you are claiming something else. This really happened in the Satyam Mahalingam case, that is Ramlingam when he went with it. Satyam being a company, the company secretary was arrested. The reason is, it is the duty of a company secretary to be a whistleblower if any fraudulent acts are happening. But the company secretary of Satyam, he couldn't actually go with it because of the fear of Ramlingam and his son. But that you cannot actually tell that in the court. So the court will be asking you, did you do your duties properly? That is what the first question the court will ask the company secretary. So he can be in a criminal case if there is something called making false statements. Then unauthorized or illegal transfer of shares and all such matter will be covered under statutory liabilities. So if any kind of a share values are actually increased or decreased, the way you have given the shares to somebody, if it is legal or it is illegal, everything will be scrutinized by SEBI, that is Securities Exchange Board of India. Now if they find that particular company have done it, who is actually liable? That is, the company secretary is liable and he will be questioned in the ED as well as in the police station. So these are the things which a company secretary should always look into. The secretary, however, is not responsible for fraud committed by his assistants unless his convenience is proved. Now here you need to understand, it may be the top level or the people who are the subordinate of a company secretary. If they do any mistake, it is not the mistake of the company secretary, but the company secretary cannot be neglecting those mistakes. Now he should always bring it to the notice of the top management as well as to the entire public, saying that these are the things which is happening. But supposingly he don't know anything, but still his subordinates are doing the fraudulent act, that is a time when the questions will be arising. What is that company secretary was doing? Why was he not aware of all these things? Why did he was so silent so that they will not catch anybody? So all these questions will come until he is not proved innocent, he is not guilty, the company secretary is proper. Or else if he is proved guilty as well as the company secretary is also involved in it, then there is a problem. Next we have is the contractual liabilities. By virtue of the contractual, that is a contract between company and the secretary, the latter is held liable for breach of any provision of the agreement. If there is any kind of a breach of contract, there is a problem. The secretary enjoys a fiduciary relationship towards the company, and therefore he should not indulge himself in making secret profits due to his special position. Now, a company secretary will always have what? A special position. Now, he shouldn't misuse it. He should not misuse it. Misuse. Next, similarly, any loss or damage caused due to his authoritative position, the company or to any third party will make him responsible to make it good. So who is actually answerable? It is the company secretary who is answerable, because he is the whole and soul of the company. The last one here is, finally, he would be responsible for any disclosure of trade secrets to the company for which he may be restrained by any injunction taken from the court. Now, any trade secret, what happens is it should reach the company secretary. The company secretary will actually go take the patent and all those things. See, even getting a patent and a copyright and trademark, the company secretary's signature is very much needed. So if the company secretary uses his position for the benefit of a company, it's good. But if they go with unfair trade practice, then what happens? The company secretary is liable for it, and he'll be questioned for why he has done all these things. So here you need to know that the company secretary has a lot of responsibility, lot of duties, lot of things which he has. But if you see in the drawbacks also, I'll tell you, for even a mistake done by somebody else, the company secretary is being questioned. See, that is what it is. That means whole and soul, a company secretary belongs to a company. That's why they say a company secretary is a servant of a company. Company secretary is an agent of a company. Company secretary act like a principal officer, a senior administrative officer, as well as chief administrative officer. So all these roles are given only to the company secretary. Now the next one is appointment of company secretary. How the appointment is done. Now 2013 Companies Act and the 1956 Companies Act have given all the details about how and when a company secretary should be appointed. There are few clauses which is very mandatory, which you are supposed to follow. The first one is Section 203 of Companies Act 2013. Read with the rule 8 and 8A. So what is it? The Section 203. Students, if you don't remember the sections, no issues, but please don't write any other sections and then you go with it. Of company, appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel, that is rule 2013, states that the following company need to appoint. What is it? A following company need to appoint a whole-time company secretary. The first one is any listed companies. When I say listed company, it is the public company. What is it? Public company. Now, a public company should actually go with that. A public company. As well as I'll tell you, even a private company should have a mandatory company secretary, but the law is totally different. Now, a public company having paid up share capital of rupees 10 crore or more, now they should have a company secretary. The same way for a private company also, if the paid up capital is say 10 crore or more, they should also have a company secretary. That is, every private company having paid up share capital of rupees 10 crore or more. 10 crore is what the thing is, 10 crore or more, they should have a company secretary. Now, the roles of the company secretary. What are the roles of a company secretary? The first one here is to ensure the compliance of the provision of various laws applicable to the company. That is the first one. Second is to ensure that the affairs of company are conducted in the manner specified. Now, there should be what? he cannot change anything specified in the memorandum and article of association. See, even memorandum and article, a company secretary signature is mandatory, because in the memorandum of association, the objective of the company is given, and the article of association, you have the roles and the rules of the internal management. So article of association will be acting as a subsidy of the memorandum of association, and memorandum is very much needed to whenever a public company is formed. The MOA, that is memorandum of association, is a very important document. If you don't get the memorandum of association, you will never get incorporation certificate as well as commencement certificate. So the company secretary need to be there. Next is to conduct the board meetings, committees meetings, general meetings, and to attend every meeting he should be there. Next is to maintain the minutes of the above meeting. That is, who will actually maintain this? The company secretary will actually maintain the minutes book. That is, what has happened, who told what were the suggestions, what was the drawback, what is the conclusion of the meeting. Everything will be listed by whom? The company secretary. See, his roles and duties are very, very huge. Next is to carry out all procedure related to the allotment, transfer and transmission or buyback of shares of the company. Everything is carried by the company secretary. When I say buyback of the shares, what happens is the company secretary will actually go with the notice of going for a buyback of shares from the shareholders who have already purchased the shares. And here is keeping the company's record and to maintain the statutory registers as required to the Companies Act 2013. That means he will have all the files about the company, the lawsuits, any kind of a financial document, or everything will be actually under the surveillance and the guidelines of the company secretary. So next, if you go with the roles of company secretary, to advise the board of directors of their legal obligations. Now, any of the board of directors is there who isn't doing any kind of a work legally. Now it is the company secretary whose obligation is to maintain that. Next is to represent the company in front of various regulators and the government departments. So company secretary is answerable to all of them. Next, we have to guide the directors about their responsibilities and duties. Now, here understand, the directors have appointed the company secretary, but the company secretary actually gives them the code of conduct and the regulations and the responsibility which they are supposed to do. That means what? Sometimes he becomes even more powerful than the board of directors. To be a liaison between a company and the stakeholder, he should be always an agent, a bridge between what? The company as well as the stakeholders. To do all such duties as assigned by the board because he is a servant of a company. And lastly, to do all such act as may be prescribed under the various laws applicable to the company. So according to his roles and duties, a company secretary should be very unbiased, and he should participate in the efficiency work of the company. He should always be for the company because he is a person who is the whole and soul of the company. From the balance sheet, from the laws, he should know the mercantile law, the company law, the corporate law, everything, and he should always wish to be a person who can actually bring a difference in the company, because a company secretary has a lot of work. And I always ask all my students that if you have taken commerce, please do company secretaryship, because it's one of a process which you will actually get more money as well as more dignity plus responsibility. If you really want to actually crack this company secretaryship, please do join Vidhyaashram, because here in Vidhyaashram we are giving you all the training as well as tutoring you people so that you can get the company secretaryship very easily. We have a lot of faculties who are experienced and they know how to crack a company secretarial practices examination. And if you have any queries, you can call us. We are always there to help you. Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you.